Hello, and welcome to video 27B, the second part of this sub-series on two Jesuit hammers, Hitler and the Jesuit Vatican shadow empire that brought him to power. There is so much misinformation about Hitler today, and this has been done deliberately by the Jesuits to cover their tracks. Just as they have created confusion by publishing hundreds of corrupt Bible versions, so they have published many fictions about Hitler. Do not be deceived by this massive campaign of misinfo and disinfo by Masonic authors, because the purpose is to muddy the waters. Muddy the waters so that people mill around without being able to get a grasp on who's behind all this and why it happened, and to get the truth on the matter. Like Napoleon, Hitler was raised Roman Catholic by Roman Catholic parents and remained a servant of the Roman religion. The myths about him being half Jewish and self-loathing are just nonsense. A Jesuit attempt to create confusion over his origins. This can be confirmed with a basic fact check. He was born to Alois Hitler and his third wife, Clara Pozzo, in April 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria. Irregardless of what has been written about Hitler, and the stories are numerous, he remained a Roman Catholic all his life. And there is a textual and pictorial record to prove it. Eagleman writes, and I quote, "In 1941, Hitler told General Gerhard Engel, 'I am now as before, a Catholic, and will always remain so,' unquote." That's the words of Hitler. Hitler never left the church. He was baptized a Roman Catholic as an infant and was a communicant and altar boy in his youth. So the chances of him not being Catholic are almost zero. And this information was taken from Hitler Was a Good Catholic by Eagleman. There isn't a lot of textual information to prove conclusively that he was a Freemason or sympathetic to their cause, as most of the Masonic lodges in Germany were eventually closed down by Hitler's administration, except for one favored chapter, thus creating the illusion, or the public illusion, that the Nazis were anti-Masonic. This couldn't be further from the truth. However, the truth is in the photos where we see Hitler flashing Masonic signs, indicating he was indeed a Masonic adept. Make no mistake about it. Hitler was a Mason, he was an occultist, and he was Roman Catholic. And they all seem to fit together very nicely. Remember, Freemasonry and all secret societies had come under total Jesuit control by 1814, long before Hitler was around. So, to say that these things are not connected, is ridiculous. History records otherwise. Hitler was an occultist as well as Roman Catholic, demonstrating that both dovetail together. They dovetail together. Contrary to all the false claims of the Roman Catholic Church that Freemasonry is the enemy of the Church. It's nonsense. Total nonsense. Freemasonry in its early form, as the mystery school's Luciferian religion, was there right from the beginning, way back in the 2nd century AD. And the mystery school religion came all the way down from Babylon through Pythagoras, a high-ranking sorcerer who had a school and taught his students all these Luciferian secrets. And that came down through Rome and then up through the Roman Catholic Church as the imperial Roman emperor disintegrated. And we have Caesarian Rome morphing over time into papal Rome, which is what we have today. And so these Luciferian secrets, which is now Freemasonry, have been there all along in the Roman Catholic Church. Hitler's mentor, Dietrich Eckart, was a member of the Thule Society. They met when Hitler joined the DAP, or German Workers' Party, and later became the NSDAP, or Nazi Party. In Munich, sometime in 1919, when Hitler was an undercover agent and still in the army. Hitler, despite all his rhetoric, was a Luciferian. Both Roman Catholicism and Thule are occult, satanic, serving Satan, all the while proclaiming God and Christianity. Remember, Catholicism is not Christian in any way. It is anti-biblical in all its teachings and practices. This is what seems to confuse researchers and creates all the myths. However, I believe most authors are complicit in hiding the Jesuits and Freemasonry in their historical revisionist fictions. To put the Jesuits at the foundation of all these world events, the book would never get published. Never. Hitler said and was so many conflicting things and rubbed shoulders with so many different kinds of people, and this led to contradictions and an opacity about his life. In his rise to prominence from obscurity, but it is almost in his invisible connection to the Jesuits that appears to escape the notice of prominent historians, who are willfully obscurantist in their writing. This is in spite of the documented evidence that Heinrich Himmler was a Jesuit, Himmler's uncle was a Jesuit, and the SS was modeled on the Jesuit order. This is openly stated in documents. You can't ignore it. Why is this ignored? Well, because no book laying the blame for World War II at the feet of the Jesuits will ever make the bestseller list, let alone get approved for publishing. It would get the author killed for his troubles, and many have died attempting to expose the Jesuits. Just like Napoleon, close study reveals Hitler was assisted by a hidden hand every step of the way to being appointed Chancellor of Germany in 1933. A year of high occult significance. A lot happened worldwide in 1933. And then he became Führer, or leader of all Germany, the very next year, 1934. How is this possible for this to occur in such short order? Many will argue that he was saying the right things and was popular, and so had the full democratic support of his party and the German people. This may be true to some extent, but it ignores the powers behind the scenes, pulling strings, making Hitler's rapid ascent to power possible, just as it did for Napoleon. All obstacles were removed for Hitler on his move up. And who was removing all these obstacles? In 1934, between June 30 and July 2nd, Hitler, in a vicious purge called Night of the Long Knives, eradicates his enemies and consolidates his power over the judiciary and stormtroop command. This is a typical Jesuit operation. Move in suddenly, without warning, and kill all your competition. Anybody who might pose a threat to the path to power. And this is what Hitler did. Hundreds, maybe thousands of SA or Wehrmacht members, including their leader Ernst Röhm, were murdered cold-bloodedly, sending fear into the hearts of all. Many historians gloss over the fact that Germany was a police state and that by this time Germans were living in fear of night visits by the Gestapo, the secret police, formed in 1933 by Hermann Göring. Censorship was strict, and Roman Catholic Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels had instituted a formidable propaganda campaign through all state-controlled media that had effectively brainwashed the public to the reality of what Hitler's Nazi regime was actually doing. So, if you want to think that Hitler was the good guy and that all the people loved him and that everything was hunky-dory in Nazi Germany, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. German life under Hitler after 1933 was Orwellian, with the state apparatus monitoring the people and any hint of dissent quickly extinguished. People ratted on neighbors or falsely accused those they disliked for state reward, and everyone was under suspicion. Many people disappeared in the night, and you don't hear about this very much. People just disappeared because their neighbors took a dislike to them or wanted their apartment or wanted their property. Diabolical. Many Germans who lived through it all will readily tell of the terrible fear they constantly lived in under Hitler's wicked regime. Hitler and Cardinal Pacelli, the Vatican connection. Let's get something straight right here. What is told in any official narrative is always a lie. This whole world operates on lies. This is how the deception is maintained by the Jesuits of Rome. They have written history, and that history is a total fabrication containing small fragments of truth. The pictures of this period, however, do not lie. Hitler was boosted into power by the Jesuit hidden hand, and Cardinal Eugenio Pacelli was the facilitator under instructions of undoubtedly the most wicked Jesuit superior general who ever drew breath, Vladimir Ledachowski. These two men orchestrated every aspect of Hitler's regime prior to and during World War II. There's always two sides to a story, and sometimes three. If you are unfamiliar with the Jesuits and their satanic mind, then please read their bloody fourth oath, and you'll understand what their evil goal is and the means they will resort to in order to obtain it. The central Jesuit maxim is, the end justifies the means, which pretty well sums up what these evil characters are capable of. They will do anything to achieve their goals. Hitler appeared publicly, outwardly, to care for the plight of the German people. This is what fooled people. He seemed to care. But the truth is, inwardly, his real feeling, his real mission was to rebuild and then destroy or smash Germany and lay waste to its Protestant Christian heritage, as well as the Jews and liberal Catholics. To crush the German peoples into submission once and for all. That was the mission. Is it hard to believe? It is a fact stated clearly in their 100 anathemas or curses against heretics in the Council of Trent Manifesto of 1563. The Jesuits used Hitler and his friends, Stalin, Mussolini, Franco, Roosevelt, Hirohito, Vichy, Churchill, and others to waste Europe, Russia, and Asia so they could inaugurate the Jesuits' 44-year Cold War in preparation for the rebuilding of these nations into a Luciferian empire, which is what effectively we have today. We are living in a Luciferian empire. These men weren't enemies, as history declares them to be. Far from it. They were acting together under Jesuit instructions for a common cause, a new world order in which they believed. There's even photos of them together. Not Hitler, but there's photos of Stalin, Churchill, Roosevelt sitting together. All Masons, high-level Freemasons, working together under the Jesuits. People, these wicked Jesuit agents were following instructions every step of the way. Hard to believe, I know, but it is a fact. All these world leaders were traitors to their people, carrying out a Jesuit plan that resulted in the extermination of tens of millions of people, both civilian and military. They were all controlled and are villains, not heroes, as they are portrayed in the history books. Today we see that New World Order rising like the Masonic phoenix rising from the ashes of World War II, which was a bloody sacrifice of human carnage to Lucifer, and which the Jesuits created out of their Vatican United Nations government. World War II was just another Inquisition program to further the Jesuitical counter-reformation against biblical Christianity begun in 1563 after the evil Council of Trent had concluded. It's still going today. It hasn't stopped. It has never stopped. Today, Europe, Russia, and Asia are fundamentally godless, pagan, and atheistic, devoid of biblical truth, strongholds of idolatry, communism, and consumerism. That's all been done through smashing all these countries with wars, civil wars, revolutions, genocides, insurrections. That's what they've done. The photo evidence of the full involvement of the Roman Catholic Church with Hitler's Third Reich is damning. The Vatican's repeated plea of innocence based on not knowing and not wanting to get involved in politics is hypocrisy beyond belief. The Vatican became a political state in 1929 and was continually updated on actions taken by the Nazi regime. This is documented in a continuous stream of letters and communications sent and received by the popes, confirming their complicity and guilt in everything that happened in Germany under Hitler. There are photos of Cardinal Pacelli and Knight of Malta Franz von Papen signing the Reichskonkordat in 1933. A concordat is a document submitting a nation to papal rule, not some kind of mere diplomatic formality. Jesuit coadjutor Pacelli is a key figure responsible for the horrors of World War II. Let's have a look at Pacelli. Eugenio Maria Giuseppe Giovanni Pacelli came from a family that was closely linked to the black nobility Farnese family, rising through the ranks rapidly. His brother Francesco, a canon lawyer, helped negotiate the Lateran Treaty with Benito Mussolini, which gave birth to the Vatican State in 1929. This is a very significant event in world history. A religious church body became a state, a country. Can anyone see something wrong with that? It is 100% unbiblical. 100%. Pacelli was appointed apostolic nuncio to Germany on June 23, 1920, and carried out secret negotiations with Hitler during his rise to power in the 1920s. Let's have a look at this amazing convergence. In 1933, Hitler is chancellor. Pacelli is nuncio. That same year, a Reichskonkordat is signed between the Roman Church and the Nazi government of Germany. Again, a concordat is a treaty pledging allegiance and obedience to the Pope of Rome. All the garbage written about a silent war between the Pope and Hitler is pure nonsense, written for gullible people. There's no war. The only time there's a war is if a nation refuses to obey the Pope. That's the only time there's a war. They were all working together to fulfill the Jesuit military order's plan for Europe. They have been waging war against the peoples of Europe for 1,600 years. It was, and still is, all about world conquest. Country by country, continent by continent. Pacelli is rewarded for his cooperation with the Jesuits and promoted to Pope 6 years later on March 2nd, 1939, becoming Pope Pius XII. Only very wicked men go to the top, and Pacelli was wicked. His predecessor, Pope Pius XI, said so before he died. He stated, and I quote, "When today the Pope dies, you'll get another one tomorrow because the church continues. It would be a much bigger tragedy if Cardinal Pacelli dies because there is only one. I pray every day God may send another one into one of our seminaries, but as of today there is only one in this world." Unquote. Satanic inversion flips the meaning, so what he actually said should read, "Pacelli is so evil, there is only one like him in the world." That's what he really said. Hitler is also rewarded with the top position as Führer of Germany the next year as part of the deal, and the stage is set for the commencement of the Jesuit Vatican World War II Inquisition against all of Europe and humanity. Note that all world leaders are selected, not elected democratically. No. Elections are a hoax, perpetuating the illusion of freedom everywhere. There's no such thing as democratic elections. You can just forget about that. If you're thinking that you're voting for your leaders, no, you're not. You're just participating in public theater. That's all. Your vote means nothing. Here is Hitler's open admission that he is carrying on the tradition of the Roman Catholic Church, persecuting, incarcerating, torturing, and killing Jews and Christians in the belief he is doing service to God. Think about that. He states, and I quote, "As for the Jews, I am just carrying on with the same policy which the Catholic Church has adopted for 1,500 years, when it has regarded the Jews as dangerous and pushed them into ghettos, etc. Because it knew what the Jews were like. I don't put race above religion, but I do see the dangers in the representatives of this race for church and state, and perhaps I am doing Christianity a great service." Unquote. Can you see what I'm talking about? This is not my ideas. This is straight from Hitler's mouth. And again, Hitler states, quote, "I learned much from the order of the Jesuits." There's your link. Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on the earth than the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my party." Unquote. That's it right there, people. Hitler was 100% a puppet of the Jesuits and the Roman Catholic Church. And whatever he did was done by the Roman Catholic Church. Franz von Papen, Hitler's chancellor, made similar statements confirming that this was the accepted program of Hitler's government. It's confirmation. He stated, "The Third Reich," quote, "the Third Reich is the first power that not only recognizes but puts into practice the high principles of the papacy." Unquote. So there you have it. Hitler and his chancellor both saying, we're working for the Pope, and whatever we do, whatever we've done, has been done for the Pope, for the Jesuits. This was prophesied by Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago. He said, Jesus said in John chapter 16 and verse 2, "They will put you out of the synagogues," talking about his followers, his believers. "In fact, a time is coming when anyone who kills you will think he is offering a service to God." That's exactly what Hitler said. Perhaps what did he say? "Perhaps I'm doing Christianity a great service." Diabolical. Okay, Hitler's modus operandi. Like Napoleon, Hitler would go on to make strange decisions at crucial moments during the war, resulting in plots by patriotic generals to assassinate him. Many historians state that Hitler should have won the war. Should have. These bad decisions at critical moments would result in enormous losses of life and in the end the destruction of Germany and Protestant Christianity. But I'm positing that was the Jesuits' intention from the beginning. Hitler was raised to be an obedient hammer of vengeance for the Jesuits. That was his purpose. He was following orders to smash and rearrange Europe exactly as Napoleon did. Oh yeah. It appears all went well between 1933 and 1942 until slowly but surely the wheels started to fall off the war effort after his flawed decisions in the Ukraine offensive. Part of the problem appears to have been Hitler's system of rule, which placed him at the top of the hierarchy, causing all to rely entirely on his decisions for good or bad. Kershaw states, and I quote, "Hitler made clear in his speeches that the people formed the pyramid. At its apex was the genius, the great man himself. The leader was the central point or preserver of the idea. This demanded," Hitler repeatedly underlined, "blind obedience and loyalty from the followers." And this is the philosophy of the Jesuits, 100%. This is a mirror of the Jesuit power structure, with the Jesuit Superior General, who was Ledachowski between 1939 and 1945, at the apex giving orders to those below. Hitler was a megalomaniacal dictator, manipulative and cruelly vindictive, who enjoyed the suffering of others. This is pure Jesuitical behavior. They enjoy torture and the suffering of others. So cruel. That's why the Jesuits still control the office of the Inquisition today. Only the title of that office has changed to Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Fest writes, and I quote, "In this regard, Hitler was extremely cruel. It was not enough for him to dispose of his enemies once and for all. They had to suffer. The conspirators of July 20, 1944 were not simply killed, they were murdered slowly and excruciatingly. The executions were filmed, and on the very same evening, Hitler watched the movies to the last convulsions of the delinquents." That's a fact. He enjoyed every minute until their very death, watching them suffer. In this respect, Hafner's speculation that it was a heartfelt matter for Hitler to destroy the German nation was not so fallacious. In the burnt soil commands, Hitler expressed the living conditions he wished for the German people after the war. And I quote, he said, "None. The best had died anyway, and the remaining do not deserve any consideration." Unquote. That's Hitler. Nobody deserves to live. The best have died, and the rest do not deserve any consideration. There is no doubt in my mind that Hitler was possessed by an evil spirit. His cruelty and malevolence was 100% satanic. Now what I'm reading from was taken from a psychological analysis of Adolf Hitler's decision-making as commander-in-chief. Was Hitler cruel and vindictive towards the German people? Without a doubt. Like Napoleon, he was a traitor and tyrant working to a covert Roman agenda to waste Germany. His total allegiance was to the Roman Empire, not his country. Do the German people understand this today? Maybe some, but there is a collective guilt perpetrated against them that cripples them to the present day. Here is a statement made by German writers Dorner and Guss about the bewitching of Germany, denying the capability of the German populace, or Hitler, or so it seems. Dorner and Guss write, and I quote, "What can one do against the dark power of evil? We Germans were just misled. It was not really us who committed these atrocities. It was an overarching dark power that caused us to become members of the Hitler Youth, to become soldiers, and to completely destroy almost all of Europe. We were bewitched. Such a demonizing of Hitler only deflects responsibility." Unquote. And again, this is taken from a psychological analysis of Adolf Hitler's decision-making as commander-in-chief. Here's a short list of Hitler's inexplicable but deadly war errors. The Dunkirk evacuation of May 26 to June 4th, 1940. What happened? Hitler was allowed to be victorious and overrun France early in the peace, cutting off 338,226 British troops, so they had to be evacuated. But wait, Hitler just let them go. Why didn't he destroy them? He was told not to, that's why. Why didn't Hitler take the opportunity to attack England at that strategic moment of so-called Allied weakness? Because he was told not to. Why? The Jesuits wanted a long, protracted war, giving them time to destroy their population targets. They needed time, years, to do this. Number 2, the Battle of Britain, July 10th, 1940. What happened? For 3 months, the German Air Force bombed England, attempting to inflict enough damage and ensuring the success of Operation Sea Lion, which was to follow. Why? Why did he stop? Why didn't it happen? After enormous losses of aircraft, Hitler called a halt and abandoned his planned attempt at invading England by sea. Had he persisted, he might have succeeded. Instead, he turned his focus to the eastern front, the forum, the battle there, as he was ordered to do, leaving his western flank open to attack and once again extending the length of the war. Inexplicable. Number 3, Operation Sea Lion, September 1940. What happened? Nothing. Hitler abandoned his plan for invasion by sea, which he could have carried out, and focused his resources in the opposite direction to confront his fellow Jesuitical coadjutor and friend, Stalin. The reason given is oil, but this is just a lie. This is a distraction. The real purpose is the destruction of his army. Stalin's army, civilians, and ultimately the vanquished German people. This operation, had it gone ahead in tandem with continued aerial bombardment, may have been successful. There was every chance. Number 4, Operation Barbarossa, June 22nd, 1941 to January 7, 1942. What happened? Hitler decides to redirect a large part of his army toward Russia, just like Napoleon did. Exactly the same. Even better, he delays, just as Napoleon did, at a critical juncture, diminishing his chances of success because of the oncoming Russian winter. Isn't that amazing? He's copying Napoleon's error. Why? Is he an idiot? No. He's simply following orders to slowly destroy his army, in the same manner Napoleon did. Many of these soldiers were Protestant Lutherans. Remember, the Jesuits are a military order. And they're destroying the German military. It is estimated more than 3 million German personnel were involved in this fatal theater on the Eastern Front. Stalin, another Jesuit-trained stooge, got the chance under orders to waste his army to the tune of millions dead and an estimated 5 million Russian men taken as POWs, prisoners of war, by the Germans, of which 3.5 million perished. Fatalities for the German army numbered 830,000 men. Millions of civilians also perished in the conflict from starvation, rape, brutality, crossfire. Some estimate upward of 14 million victims. Think about that. What an incredible loss of life. The result? An ongoing war of attrition, backwards and forwards, resulting in the deaths of millions more, ending finally in January 1945 with the capitulation of the German forces. For what? A protracted war designed to waste populations, many people of which were of Protestant, Orthodox, Jewish, and Catholic persuasion. Slaughtered by the millions. Note, it must be remembered here that the German, Italian, and Russian war machines were constructed and financed by the Jesuit-controlled Masonic Wall Street bankers in New York, like the Schiffs, Warburgs, Morgans, and Bushes. They financed, all financed from New York. This is a documented fact. Both sides, Allies and Axis, are being financed and controlled by the same hidden hand. The Jesuits always profit by controlling both sides, and they never lose in a conflict because they always come out a winner because they've got both sides in their pocket. Remember, and this is important to remember, the Jesuits took control of the U.S. money supply when they secretly created their Masonic Federal Reserve Bank on December 23, 1913, just in time to print millions in worthless fiat currency to finance their inquisitional war against Germany in World War I. And I urge you to read The Monster from Jekyll Island by historian G. Edward Griffin, written in 1994, for all the facts about the secret founding of the Federal Reserve. Adolf Hitler and his top men, including Heinrich Himmler, Joseph Goebbels, William Frick, and others, were Roman Catholic. Himmler was a Jesuit and modeled the SS on the Jesuit order. Hitler himself stated, and I quote, "I can see Himmler as our Ignatius of Loyola," unquote. That implicates the Nazis with the Jesuits in one statement again. Under Hitler's social democrat government, Germany essentially became a Catholic vassal state and sword of Rome, even though only 40% of the population was Catholic. 40%. The facts literally scream Hitler's ties to Rome and his unswerving allegiance to the Pope. Hitler carried out the protocols of the Jesuit order in everything he did. He openly declared his awe and admiration for the Jesuits and the Roman Catholic Church, just as Napoleon did. Hitler and his Catholic cronies became a hammer of vengeance for the Luciferian Jesuits to crush the German Protestant peoples once and for all, so they could rebuild Germany as a 20th century economic miracle and make it the cornerstone of their coming Luciferian European Union, which they have now accomplished. Martin Bormann, Hitler's second in charge, would be tasked by the Jesuits with secreting the Nazi riches out of Germany into Swiss banks. The New York Times in 1973 quotes Manning, and I quote, "In Berlin, Hitler had advised Bormann to bury everything. You will need it to return to power," unquote. Stories were circulated about both Hitler and Bormann's suicide in Berlin as the Russians approached. Yet no remains were identified as such, and many eyewitnesses attest to seeing both of them in South America years later. But that is another story. The truth is, the bodies of both men were never recovered. Miraculously, in a few decades, Germany rises from the rubble again like a phoenix, rapidly rebuilding to become a post-World War II economic powerhouse. How is that possible in such a short space of time? Nazi wealth. Only with assistance by the vast Jesuit wealth. It was all pre-planned. And you can read an account of this in the book written by Paul Manning called Martin Bormann and the Future of Germany. There is no doubt in my mind that Hitler, Bormann, and Himmler, and maybe many others, secretly made their exit from Europe via the Vatican rat lines in order to perpetuate Jesuit myths that persist today about their deaths. The Jesuits are masters of myth and magic, smoke and mirrors, and the creation of false or illusory realities. Life truly is stranger than fiction. Upon waking up and discovering the truth after so many years of believing Jesuitical revisionist histories and pseudoscience lies learned from school textbooks published by the Jesuit-controlled Masonic publishers. Unbelievable. This has been a trip for me. People, this has taken me 5, 6, maybe 7 years to figure this all out. According to many disparate sources, Hitler, Bormann, and Himmler lived out their days in South America. A reward from the Jesuits for a job well done. The Jesuit-run OSS, now CIA, knew all about it and made no effort to arrest them. Why? Because it's controlled by the Jesuits. Why would they go after their own people? No. Not going to happen. Neither did Simon Wiesenthal, who chose his targets selectively in order to keep public rage about the Auschwitz gassing and burning Holocaust fiction alive. Millions of Jews were murdered, but most of it was done covertly by mass shootings and mass graves in eastern Poland. Millions of Jews were rounded up and shot and buried secretly in the countryside. That's a fact. This is the story that never gets told, so very few people know about it. People, if you choose to believe the fictions that Hitler was some kind of a hero, understand that all the facts dispute this. World War II doesn't make sense unless the covert Jesuit plan is understood. Hitler was a willing puppet of the Jesuits. Like Napoleon, he was a Judas goat, a traitor and destroyer of his people and all men. The Jesuits control this world system with the power pyramid they have constructed over 500 years. They hide behind multiple smokescreens, including the evil Jew myth, which they created long ago, deceiving many today, and the evil banker myth, which they also created. They have successfully deceived the whole world. If you have persisted in listening this far, then it means you are open and looking for answers. I do my best in every video to inform about true history and to warn you, the listener, of the danger that lies ahead. This present world system can't be rolled back through collective effort. That's an illusion. It's too late. Any attempt to do so will be met with violent suppression by the Jesuit-controlled world law enforcement agencies and militaries. The only response that can be made by each individual is spiritual, not physical. The message is, save yourself. You have the power to choose life or death, and Jesus Christ is the life, the only life, now and beyond this life. Rejecting God and His plan of redemption through Jesus Christ means choosing to serve Satan, the prince of this world, whether you personally believe Satan exists or not. This world is first and foremost a spiritual reality. The material, the physical, is fading away day by day. Every soul will die and stand before God at the last judgment. There is no escape. Everyone who has ever lived will face the judgment, and based on the choices they made, will face an eternal destiny in heaven or hell. In Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 27 states very clearly, just as man is appointed to die once, and after that to face judgment. Jesus Christ said in John chapter 14 and verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father, God, except through me. People, there is no other way to be saved from sin and death. God loves you, and His free offer of mercy and forgiveness is being extended now. But time is running out on human history. This age is almost finished. Darkness is falling rapidly, and these are the last days of this evil age. The Luciferian Jesuit Roman Catholic Empire beast system is here now and is attempting to deceive all into embracing the one world religion and worship of Satan's God-man dictator, the Pope of Rome. This is the mark of the beast. All who take this mark and participate willingly in this world system will die eternally. There are no second chances. Please consider carefully. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you in your search for the truth. Please share this video with others so that they too may be warned about the evil that is coming. I hope to see you in the next video.